Good afternoon to our viewers. You're most welcome to the Inter-University Debate Series 2025. Your host today in particular is me, Masawi Ivan, with a panel of ladies and gentlemen. I will begin in the interest of time to introduce our guests for this particular engagement. Our topic of discussion are the civil and political rights that have been put into military trial in Uganda today, taking a look at the UPDF Amendment Bill 2025. From my closest of my left is, from my far, let me begin from my farthest right, is from Makerere University School of Built Environment, and she's called the Honorable Mbabas Teresa Tracy. She's a member representing the School of Built Environment at Makerere. You're most welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Coming from my extreme right is a gentleman you've seen on this show, not once, not twice. The Honorable Tamale Nkoyoyo is the president of the Launchpad Debate Club at the Uganda Christian University. I don't know if the two are coherent. They belong to the same address.
Yes,
the Debate Club and Uganda Christian University.
Yes, they do.
Wow, it is always a pleasure to have you here, engage our viewers, especially in issues of debate and the law. In the middle, or as you move to my left from my extreme right, is a fellow alumni of Kyambogo University, in the names of Honorable Akelo Peace Merisha. Hope I'm correct by pronunciation.
Yes, please, you are.
Yeah, is a graduate of Kyambogo University, is here with us to share her perspective of the topic today. And closest to me is, I've been advised that is our advocate of the day. So we shall give him not the status of lawyer, but our counsel for the specific topic. That is the Mr. Ruwaga John. The surname gives me a lot of challenges, but he's from the Uganda Christian University in Uganda. At the bar of the university. That is what I can use for purposes of more engagement. I will begin it with you, given I've been guided that you are our lead counsel of the specific discussion. We're looking at our civil and political rights facing military trial today. You are aware that a week ago, the UPDF Amendment Bill 2025 was introduced to Parliament for the first reading, and the Speaker sent it to the Legal and Rules Committee and also the Committee of Defense. A bill is supposed to take a minimum of 45 days in the law at a committee level. But a week later, the bill has already been brought back to Parliament and it is seeking to be approved into law. First of all, I want to shed for the viewers, especially students who may not be students of the law, what does the amendment, what was the status of the UPDF bill, UPDF Act actually before amendment, and what does the UPDF Amendment Bill mean to the civil and political rights of a student, but also a young Ugandan?
Thank you so much for the insight. The third name gave you some headache. It's Elian, and I'm happy to be here. So looking at the question you've asked, looking at the status of the UPDF Act before the amendment and the one after the bill, we can say that the one before the amendment was the UPDF Act, and it followed the one of 2005 because that's when it came into power or into consideration when Parliament was making it. It was originally aimed at looking at issues concerning the UPDF, because the Uganda People's Defense Forces were supposed to be governed by a particular legislation. So the legislation was looking at the ranking, was looking at the military courts and the various courts that were actually in that were supposed to govern the military operations in the field and even outside. So the status before, I would want to fast track it up to the January incident, whereby we had the Michael Kabazuruguka case versus Attorney General in the Supreme Court, where they said that the status of the UPDF Act as it was then, given the status quo and even with the court martial, that it could not be able to be used as a tool for trying civilians, because they used to have Section 197 at that time, which they were using to try civilians in a court martial, that indeed, when you found in possession of a firearm belonging to the military or the UPDF, you would be tried in a court martial. So the court was also wondering what exactly amounts to this arm that you're claiming is a monopoly of the UPDF. We do not have that list. So please, given the status quo and the people who are trying the civilians, given the fact that they are called the chairperson and the qualifications they are having, they cannot be seen as competent judges to try civilians. And so the law was trashed, and that act was supposed to go back for review. Actually, at that time, before the review and the case, in that same period, there was already an amendment coming up in the same act, in the same amendment and the same UPDF Act. So they used this as a platform to go and make changes basing on the Michael Kabazuruka case. So the status of the bill currently that is coming after, as a result of that call by the Supreme Court, realize that it is actually bringing back exactly what these people refused in the Supreme Court. Because when you look at what they're looking out for, because I'm going to speak this for the sake of a dying country that we are in. When you look at what we are having in the UPDF amendment bill, we are looking at it bring back Section 197, but then bring exactly what these people refused in the Supreme Court, that do not try civilians in a court martial because of ABCD. Now, for them, they are saying we are bringing back the same act, the same section, and saying that we are going to try the civilians in the court martial given ABCD scenarios. Because when you look at the reading of the judgment in the Supreme Court, they said that please, the current creature and the status and skeleton of the court martial cannot be used to try a person, a civilian, because it was ordinarily made to be a disciplinary committee, a disciplinary kind of committee for the UPDF and the army officials. By you using it to try civilians on whichever ground the court noted, it should be suspended, and all those civilians who are being tried should be taken to the civilian courts. Now, for you to come back and so that in Section 192, we are providing for the qualifications of the chairperson. That was by the court. The court recommended that there should be qualifications that are supposed to be attached to the people in those particular courts, like court martial, general court martial. That those people should be governed by the Judicial Service Commission. So the Judicial Service Commission should sit down and give its list to the president, the commander-in-chief, and also the commanding authority in the UPDF to be able to guide on the people that should be appointed as those chair people. So that at the end of the day, we are having them having the knowledge of the law. But now the issue is, there is a way they are bringing back the issue of trying civilians in the court martial. Yet in the particular case that they are trying to refer to, the court noted that please let the trial of civilians be in limited circumstances. I think we are going to go into English and defining what limited circumstances
I will get back to you because English is my second language after Giswe. The Honorable President of the Launchpad Debate Club, I want you to get to me. I did attend some few business law classes at master's level, and there was an issue of that laws don't work retrospectively, but also the recognition, as he has clearly stated, of the Supreme Court as the highest court in the land. Where does the amendment leave Article 92? But what remedies do you think is driving the promoters of the particular bill and amendment?
Thank you very much, dear comrade. I, first of all, like to invite our dear viewers to where this is coming from. We have every time we come here, we have to cite the Constitution, talk about, because it is our brand norm, as my colleague has noted here. The preamble of our Constitution tells so much of how dear we hold it. When our Constitution, the times when our Constitution was being promulgated, and after, it received lots of praises because of what it contained. as I make reference to the preamble, we the people, looking back at our history, recognizing our struggles against tyranny, are committed to forming a democratic society. You go and read and see what inspired the framers of the Constitution to have the kind of the Constitution we have today and the provisions that we have today. That look, under Article 44, these rights must go untouched. Yes, and offer ourselves a kind of a guiding law principle. Then when you go through the objectives and national policy within the Constitution,
yes,
really explain to the spirit of the framers of the Constitution. Coming back, and then that's where we get into
goodwill and
goodwill. That's where we get into Article 92 that bars Parliament from legislating laws that are retrospective in nature. Laws that are retrospective in nature is a court adjudicating over a certain matter. But then for Parliament to defeat such, they go and legislate to defeat the ruling of the court. That we call retrospective legislation. And so Parliament in nature, it is bad. It is supposed to consider recommendations that are within, but not to alter the court decisions.
Yes.
What is happening today
is alteration
of court decisions, and there are proper guidelines as to this effect. But away from that, there is a reference. Uganda society was invited. You see, was invited
for consultative engagement. It is a requirement for moving a bill.
Could be Rule 135 of the Parliamentary Rules of Procedures.
Very right.
Yes. The need to consult is not a privilege to the public. It is a legal requirement. The chairperson or the clerk to Parliament made it look like they were offering them a privilege to be consulted. The reason why the bill is sent to the committee after the first reading, committees to scrutinize and dig into detail, the components that are within the bill. And it is upon that time that you come, the general public is invited. Because after, when the bill goes into the second reading, the public won't be there. Much as this is a representative democracy, then there will be our parliamentarians. But then after several stakeholders have submitted their views, then they can be considered. Denying such an opportunity to the public is going to affect the bill that is being passed by Parliament today. We have recommendations. Is he Associate Professor Ronald Naluwairo of Makerere University, a celebrated legal mind in military law. You're inviting him to come and proffer you, give you guidance as regards to the law that you're drafting. And you give him the space within which you invite them, the Law Society. Now, the professor recused himself from being part of the consultations. I think they sent him, Parliament sat on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, I think is when they sent him the invitation, and he was supposed to appear in the afternoon. Uganda Law Society received the invitation later at 10, and they're supposed to appear before the committee at midday. So such hurry in the drafting of the bill negates the spirit that we talk about within the law, and we get worried whether we're not diving back into the history that
I will come
now as I conclude.
Yes.
In regard to that.
Thank you.
Parliament is not happening by a privilege. Much as we give them our powers to represent us, the bill that is under discussion must not be considered in such a hurry. First go, Attorney General is a celebrated lawyer. Consider what did the Chief Justice, what did Justice Catherine Wamgemere comment on the courts, as my colleague here gave in his submission. Go internalize them, invite people that can offer you guidance, because not all members that sit on the legal and parliamentary committee are lawyers. Now you have denied public such an access, and you're smuggling into a bill that is going to cause that is going catastrophe to this country, we must get worried of the kind of parliament that we have today. And this call does not go to parliament as in general, but more specifically, the NRM MPs that are going to sit and pass, and those that met in the caucus and agreed they are going to pass the military law. I like I told you, I want to also say this. Was it Grace Iringira?
Yes,
Then
in the 60s and 50s.
In the 60s. Who was our justice?
Yeah, from Barara Western.
Yes.
DP.
He was forced into buying buying the idea of passing the deportation of undesirable persons ordinance. It passed against a lot of contestation, and after its success, he was the first victim. And when he was being deported,
you bring a case of the Honorable Mama Mbabazi, was a key victim of the Public Order Management Act when he ran for president.
Exactly. And so when he was being taken to Karamoja,
was the promoter in parliament of the bill.
Yes, and when he was being taken to Karamoja, he says, fate is a double crosser. See how I'm being hunted by the same bill, by the same law that I passed. Same thing that happened to Mama Mbabazi. We are telling members of parliament, somewhere, somehow, you might fall the first victim.
Let me pick Makerere University. You did mention about it and reminded me we have a member from the Might University. Getting back to you, the issue raised by my brothers here who have made a very mesmerizing submissions about legality of how the bill is being handled. There are issues which are procedural. Processes in every society, when disrespected, have very high consequences. When the law is made in a blind manner, it eats up everybody. The highest challenge we have as a country is that these laws are not made for only Museveni's regime. There are laws which will govern even after post-Museveni. A lot of, when you look at the bill, I'm going to read some sections later. Even our dress code, the Kaunda suits, I always like wearing my Kaunda suit and the Django shoes, are items that are now going to be officially declared unfit for purpose for a civilian. First, as a person from a gender perspective and the future of this country that you want to see, what are your opening statements on the UPDF Amendment Act? But where do you see that the bill is of pro or cons of its impact?
Thank you for this opportunity, sir.
I'm sorry for a very long question. That is me.
It's very fine. It's very fine. As I was introduced before, Mbabazi Teresa Tracy, but my friends call me Teresa. So now, according to the submissions that we've been given, and according to the amendment that I read, the first point here is that an amendment is supposed to be something good. Because it's supposed
to improve.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're very right.
It's supposed to be like maybe something wasn't right, now you are improving it to become better. But now when we read through, we are literally having that someone brought a product that was sugar, and people didn't love the choreography on the word sugar, so it goes back and rebrands it. So now this is what this amendment is having. Is that, as council said before, is that the court had already chased away a certain law, whereby civilians had to be put in the military courts for judgment, which is not okay. And it had refused it. But now the amendment is just covering it up with another packaging and bringing it back. And this is not great. It's not totally right at all. And then the concept of time. Time is a very big concept. Why? It's because if you want my advice, you have to approach me in time. But the fact that you approach someone at 10 a.m. and they're supposed to appear at 12 a.m. and they're supposed to give a very brilliant submission and everything is supposed to go right, by the time you do that, meaning there are certain things you're hiding. As a member of mental health, my career, by the time when you give someone an abrupt appointment that you want to meet them abruptly, you mentally disorganize them. they at certain point miss out certain facts. And this is what happens when you just tell someone that, hey, it's 8 a.m. and I need this report done by 9 a.m. Like, they had things that they had to look at, but at this point, they will have to just overlook them and do totally different things. So that's why our professor from Akere refused. He turned it down because he knew what would come next. So this amendment would have been good if we were literally looking at it. But when we dive deeper into it, it's not making as much sense as it would have. Thank you.
My sister, you hear what colleagues have said. First, I want to pick what you take of the current amendment of the bill, but generally, where you look at it from the point of application, what the interest? Do you think the interest is because the elections are at the doorway, or do you think the interest is Dr. Kiza Besigye, who has stayed long on trial?
Anyway, so just like you asked me about the time concept rushing it is like a gentleman who comes and asks for your hand in marriage, and instead of pursuing you, he is coercing you, to turn in, and he's trying to show you that I am the best you would ever have. So I took my time, looked through the Amendment Act, and my major focus was which civilian is going to be tried in the court martial, right? So I looked through it. It's about, people who are involved in murder, aggravated robbery, kidnap with intent to murder, cattle wrestling, because that has been happening actually in Karamoja. Like, the military has been somewhat involved. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is not bad, right? But let's look at the political interest, just like you brought it in, and then you're like, is it because Dr. Kiza Besigye? Is it because the 2026 elections are at the door? The issue is this. I went down to look at it. Let's go back to 2018 when Bobby Wine was arrested, and then
Arua.
charged. Yeah, he was charged.
We had very many beautiful guns, AK-47, machine
True.
guns.
So if you tell me that this is meant to be planted on a civilian, right? Here comes in conflict of interest. If I am in the army, I am in the government, right? I have access. We all know that we are under military rule. I have access to people who have guns. I can easily implicate it on anyone, right? So the civilian in this case can be as well framed to fit the best political narrative. Let's look at Dr. Kiza Besigye. You understand? Let's look at Bobby Wine. In 2018, it comes back down to these individuals were framed. But then, let all that first rest. If you're to look at how Council Kiza Aaron was sentenced, right?
Rapid
No fair
sentence.
trial, no hearing. It's like my
The very way
emotions.
the bill is being executed.
Thank you very
It's
much.
going to be a record-breaking bill that has been executed in the shortest period of time in Uganda's history.
So, if you look at the Constitution talks about independence of the courts of law, right? If we come back down and then is it the High Court or the Supreme Court is saying no, the court martial cannot try, meaning it's not an independent body. Somewhere, somehow, it has conflict of interest. Let that rest. Then they go ahead, to tell you that there's need for fair hearing, and fair trial. Like, someone has to have the time. These people don't want to give people time whatsoever. Same way Councillor Aaron was sentenced. So it comes back down to conflict of interest. The law may have not been bad if you look at the contents, but who is it targeting? You get. And I love the fact that you all talked about how these same laws that we enact come back to haunt us down after a specific period of time. So to me, it is more of a conflict of interest. And if it is for the good of the people, actually, not the good of the people who are governing this state, why the rush? Let us have, the fair hearing. Let us listen to both sides. Let us listen to what should be dropped outside of the bill. But anything else is actually conflict of interest. It is governed, actually, it is tailored to pin some people down. That's all I can say. Unless I left something out.
No, you will give us whatever I left out.
Okay.
My counsel of the day, first, when you look at the remedies proposed for the bill, I'll read for you specifically remedy 7, remedy proposed in the bill. That is section 3 of the intro, page 3. F. To restructure and re-establish the court martials in the defense forces in accordance with Article 129 1D of the Constitution and prescribe the jurisdiction to provide for membership and the qualifications of presiding officers of the court martials and for the independence of the court martials. But then later, G says providing for appeals, H prescribe exceptional circumstances under which civilians may be tried by the court martial. H is where one of the highest controversies come upon. First, I know discussing some issues in Uganda really it doesn't add up to sense, because we be discussing going retrospective of where we should be leading. But looking at the judgment that was put forward by the Supreme Court, looking at the contradiction that the current amendment bill causes, I want to, maybe to the viewers who may not be legal scholars like me, do you think even when this bill is in particularly passed, some of these can be challenged?
Well, thank you for that nice question. It takes me back to the submissions that two of the panelists have given. The first one was on Grace Vingira and the incident of Grace Vingira. To just add some more light to it, when they passed, in 1966, they passed that ordinance that please, we are going to arrest anyone who is moving out because of passing the 1966 constitution, the Pidgeot whole constitution. So Grace Vingira was among the first people. He even never foresaw it that he would be among the first people that would be captured and would even be in court claiming custody, that please, I'm claiming custody under justice, please help me against this law. But the issue is he was among the people who supported and passed it. Now the issue is back to what is happening today. It takes us back to a small quotation that I came by when I was coming here, that out of hatred for the cockroach, the ants voted for that insecticide that should be used at home. At the end of the day, the insecticide ended up killing each and every small insect that was in the home.
Even the voter.
Even the voter. Even the housefly that never voted.
That is interesting.
Was involved.
So even the voter can die.
So at the point whereby the ants were tired of these cockroaches, they voted for the insecticide because of the hatred they had against them. So at the end of the day, when they sprayed, every creature died. The issue is today the members of parliament will pass the law and the president will assent to it and it will become a law. But at the end of the day, it will come back to them because the wheels of justice never raised. They will never go down. They will also keep haunting them that what you did was unjust. So we shall keep haunting you. So at the end of the day, when it takes me back to the question that you raised on the spirit that they had.
First, there is a procedural issue to challenge. Is it challengeable in courts?
It is challengeable.
Secondly, can a proposed amendment to a bill be challenged? Or
no, the bill in itself, in its structure, cannot be challenged as a bill. But then the act can be challenged
after turning into law.
After becoming a law.
Thank you.
Because the bill is just a raw law. It has not yet gone.
Someone is pamphlet.
Yes. So at the end of the day, when you look at what is happening, you've talked about the remedies they are trying to give. It takes us back to the Supreme Court decision because that's where we are arriving from. The Supreme Court decision said, understand us, please, that the creature of the court martial, the skeleton of the court martial, cannot be used to try a civilian in its current state. And if you ever go back to make another court martial and refurbish it, then it should only be used to try civilians in limited exceptional circumstances. Now, those exceptional circumstances, I think that's why I had actually stopped. It should be when, for example, the available civilian courts like the High Court and Magistrate Court cannot handle the matter. I don't know what issue they are trying to tell us that the High Court cannot handle the matters of their shoes. if they are supposed to feel like their issues are supposed to be important, if they feel like there is something being done by this civilian, why can't the High Court handle that matter?
They create a law and keep judgment to themselves.
Yes. Yeah. They feel like, because the exceptional circumstance should be when the High Court or the normal court cannot handle the matter. That is when we should go there. So they are creating the court martial as another High Court that will only be subject to appeal direct to the Court of Appeal. That's why when you check how they are going to appeal, you don't go to the High Court, because they are looking at the court martial as the same level with the High Court. So just to conclude, when you look at what is happening in section 177A, when the one that they're adding, the added amendment, that we're going to try this civilian after possessing these guns. I'm now saying, okay, finally, this person
Schedule 7A.
Yes, 117. So it's okay. We are saying it's okay. It's wrong for this person to hold this gun. It's okay for this person to commit whatever they have committed. We're not saying they're actually supposed to be innocent. We are saying now take them to the original courts. Then you, as the military, come as experts in these courts and say, this is actually a monopoly of the UPDF. This is not a monopoly. Why do you want to maintain this person in the court martial when we are very clear that there is an issue to do with memo that called non-habet, that you cannot offer what you don't have? That is why it comes to fair hearing. The court martial does not keep any fair hearing in its stores, so it cannot offer it to anyone.
We go in for a short break, as we shall be returning back. Keep it tuned to the inter-university debate. Thank you.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Once again, you're most welcome to the inter-university debate. As we went for the break, our colleague was in a submission which I want to allow him to conclude before I go to the president. That is Mr. Tamale Nkoyoyo of the Launchpad Debate Club at the Uganda Christian University.
So, to conclude on that issue, we're looking at section 117A, and we are saying that when you look at what they added the unlawful possession of any material that is a monopoly of the UPDF. And when you go to the schedule, that is schedule 7A and 7B, they list what is supposed to be a monopoly of the UPDF. I'm shocked the first item is a pistol. I'm shocked because people possess pistols in daily life.
Registered and approved.
Yes, registered and approved. People possess pistols. Big people out there, people who need protection. Even one of us might even be having a pistol for purposes of security. So if you say that is a monopoly of the UPDF, what do you tell the people, the policemen out there who have been handling the pistols? What exactly?
Security guards who keep guns.
Yes, the security guards who keep these guns.
Wow.
Because that's why you could realize on the basic issue, they put a pistol. And that's why I think they want to maintain the narrative of a pistol. Then they talked about the berets, they talked about everything that they were talking about. In such no sphere could you monopolize a cloth. Because you can monopolize a brand, but not the cloth itself. You cannot say that no one in this life should ever wear a suit because it's supposed to be for lawyers. You understand? No one should ever have that because even an engineer would want to have it.
I do
but
admire.
Now the issue you can say is that when now you get that suit and then put, let me say, counsel, that's where we shall come for you because now the counsel bit is a monopoly of lawyers. Now for you, you want to monopolize the entire cloth, meaning you want to monopolize the entire beret. Unless that is when the person has put UPDF, that is when you can monopolize. You want to monopolize the entire beret, monopolize, I even saw a basketball. A basketball cape. So I don't know where all of us are going. It is part of the list, a basketball. So people are having all those things in that list. These army shoes. Honestly, you cannot monopolize shoes because you don't even make them in the first place. You want to monopolize what you don't make. How about now the producer who has been making these shoes? What should you tell them? That they're only making them for UPDF? That is where the challenge is coming in. The law should be very, very, very clear. And that is why in that submission we are calling it the issue of nulla poena sine lege, because the law should be very exact, and that's how it's supposed to be explained. Nulla poena sine lege, exact and strict. So whatever is in the UPDF Act should not be taken as it is.
Thank you very much for the mesmerizing submission, but the quality and depth you're providing to our viewers today on the inter-university debate with regards to the UPDF Amendment Act 2025. Coming to you, my brother, when you look at the challenges he clearly stipulates that are as the result of the contradictions that arise from the bill. And you did state an issue of our political history, because when we had other presidents until Basil Okello, who was last captured in 1985, the president was the military. There was no military act. The president was the military. Does this mentally, or does it make a justification that the army is being withheld from Uganda to go and protect from the issues of Ugandans to become an institution of their own, which is now a people defense forces that sits somewhere? Is it creating, does this create a disconnect that the UPDF is objective in the constitution is different from that of Uganda? And where does this leave enjoyment of civil and political rights for other Ugandans? Because today we have even the UPDF in parliament, right? We have been trying to make inclusiveness, kumbe it had come to root, because it is now looting the freedoms of Uganda by its existence in parliament. I think that's where the errors Ugandans are realizing now, that the UPDF never came to promote welfare of their friends sleeping on streets and eating poorly, but they came to stay in power. What do you make of that?
Thank you very much. In 1994, during the time of promulgation of our constitution, they interviewed, was he captain then? Nobo Mayombo.
94 he was a captain.
Yes, Nobo Mayombo. They interviewed him. He was a member of the Constituent Assembly. They interviewed him, like, you're a member of the NRA. Why is it that you're contesting the idea of calling the UPDF, now that we have, calling it, then it was the
National Resistance Army.
National Resistance Army. Now, in the drafting of the constitution, we are shifting, and they are proposing that we call it the Uganda Armed Forces. Mayomba said, no, we need to shift from what we have been fighting against. Let us establish
a connection
within our aspirations, and in this law that we are giving to the generations to come. Why call it the Uganda Armed Forces? Let us call it Uganda People's Defense Forces.
Wow.
Nobo Mayombo expounds on the reasons why he says it should be the way it is today.
Perfect.
Uganda, it is for Uganda. Defense, people's defense, to defend the people. And the force includes in the land forces, air forces, and now the amendments they have made within clause 2 of the amendment of the bill that says now SFC is a force independent, is an independent force. Going back to Nobo Mayombo, he says we have had armies that have been personalized, and those armies have been called upon to offer to push individual interests. And you can recall what happened in 1968, 1966, attacking the Rubiri. You see, they just instructed the army, go and attack. Because the army had been personalized. Let us make it a national army that looks, that if one time there are some people who want to attack our constitution, attack our national integrity, attack our all that within that guidance, the UPDF, the army, will be in position to safeguard its people, not to safeguard an individual. Today, Now in the amendment, like we have paid so much attention to the attire and the military trials, but then we have SFC is being made an independent force.
I had not given a read to
It
that.
is an independent force today, the SFC. But the motto of SFC is Asiye Chifani. Asiye Chifani is a Swahili word. It means the incomparable, one of its kind. Comrade Loga would call it sui generis, unique in its nature. But taking back to what Nobo Mayombo feared, Obote had special forces. His special forces, they called them Chikosi Malum.
I've heard of it.
Chikosi Malum. And Chikosi Malum, I'm not certain yet of our SFC. And Chikosi Malum was employed specifically to execute Obote's interests, the kinds of Oito Joke. Now, we have SFC that, and the way it has been
And
fast
Museveni
elevating.
himself was a member of that.
I think that's where the inspiration is coming from. But we are saying, Nobo Mayombo says we need to have an army that is national in nature. And I want to interest our parliamentarians and also the general public, and we in making the SFC, which was back then called the Presidential Guard, a special force within a national army. What is it so special about it that we are making it an independent force? What special roles is it going to play? What special roles is the SFC going to play within the security of this country, away from being a unity independent to the rest? So I want to call upon the general public and us and Ugandans of goodwill that the bill in itself, like my colleague has stated, could have special things. But the speed with which has been employed into its passing tells a lot to what is being smuggled.
True.
One, SFC, and we have seen today, Eddie Mutwe was abducted. Maybe something small before you cut me off. Something small. The army has been, it is on record, has been abducting people
for basement purposes.
for basement
and
purposes
learning
and
Runyankore.
language. There is a language school.
Babas will tell us Runyankore is difficult.
I'll interest her. She has to teach him some Runyankore before I go there, so that when I go there, I'm an excellent student.
Yeah.
Now, people have been abducted, and testimonies have been made that indeed I have that person and they're learning Runyankore. And these are armed guys. Some of the NUP boys and men, family guys that have been put before arraigned before the General Court Martial for 4 years have not received any iota kind of justice. And so this is the smuggling that we're talking about. And we just trying to justify the need to try civilians within the court martial for no reason, so that the
I will come
as
back
it
to you.
is.
I will come back to you because you really highlight new grounds for my next question. But to Honorable Teresa, as you like to be called, I want to pick something quite interesting from you. Do you think the most urgent or pressing issue in this country's political dynamics as we head to the 2026 election was issues of the UPDF amendment bill? Because on the priorities of government, it has showed it has been a burning cake. Looking at what colleagues who are in the law profession have highly dealt with, the procedural issues, the contradiction with the supreme law of this country, and all that, where do you think, even you as an individual, issues of security are issues you've been finding that Uganda has been doing poorly, or you think that energy would be put somewhere else?
Well, to my submission, first of all, I'll say power is sweet. Power is one of the sweetest things, apart from sugar, of course. But power makes you blinded from what good things you already have. You ignore them, and in the end, you will have nothing, because power comes and goes. It's like money. One time you're in power, one time you're not in power. So, talking about the army, Uganda as a country has invested a lot in security. The security, we are not looking about security lights in Kampala. We are not looking at road safety. We are looking at specifically the army.
It takes the biggest
It takes
portion
the
of our
biggest.
budget year to year.
And it's not only the budget, but even our emotions, everything is connected to, when you look at security,
Monitoring government programs,
it is only the
building
army.
roads. The other day, the CDF was also a road supervisor in Kampala.
Exactly. And in Uganda as a country, we don't really have very many wars. If they're there, they are neighboring wars. Like my neighbor is fighting with me, that is it. Which could be handled by the police, not the army. So now, this amendment, critically looking at it, without any bias, someone is pushing for something. It's visible, someone is pushing for something. And let me tell you something. It's going to pass through. We like it or not, it's going to pass through.
I lost coffee like that. Am I also losing my boots? Because even these boots, brown shoes, have been gazetted as property of the army.
And Comrade Waga's Kaunda.
I have not noticed him.
So, the fact is, it is going to be passed. And as history repeats itself, the people that are going to pass it are going to be the first people that are going to be affected. In the last election, our own neighbor, it was around 8 a.m. I was coming from town, and a cop came, parked outside. 3 men came out, got the man. He was in his boxers. He was seated in the sitting room. The wife had just given birth to a baby boy, and they took him, and up to now we do not know where he is. It hurts. It hurts, it really does. And if this is going to continue, we are going to continue passing these acts, these amendments, these bills. It's going to affect us as all humans. Whether you're so-and-so's daughter, whether you're so-and-so's uncle, it is going to affect you. So now, this bill, I really don't have a lot to talk about it. Because it's all clear. As these councils have said, they've stated out the real facts.
They have digested it in depth.
They've digested it to I can't say to its deepest depth, because I'm pretty sure there are some certain things they haven't.
I think I had not interacted with high depth like I have today.
Exactly. And these are brilliant minds. But what I can say right now is we have to mitigate. We have to mitigate on how we handle this situation. Because we are not in power. We can't stop the bill, as in its nature, it can't be stopped. So it's going to move forward. But whatever is going to happen, we have to mitigate.
Picking from you, I did love wearing overalls while I was at Chambogo, and military wear to the extent that close 50% of people who knew me would call me a different name from my names due to my dress code. And I did enjoy that dress code. When you look at a bill from the lenses of political administration, and also to the lenses of expression of your human rights and civil rights, to have, as stated in the chapter 4 of the Constitution, I know you are not a lawyer, sir, but you do have certain rights that are gazetted in Uganda's Constitution.
Friends with lawyers.
Yeah, when you sit in the middle, you get a median value of law, so you'll be one. Where does this actually leave the rights of young Ugandans who have been expressing themselves in terms of dress code, in terms of affiliation politically, but in terms of their interest in national governance and the politics itself?
It leaves us in grave danger. But let me take you back a little bit. I don't know if some people have been able to read work of certain professors from MOOC, and the book is Militarizing to Develop More. Now, as much as people want to look at this whole aspect from the amendment bill, get back to projects, things that happened in society that have been infiltrated with the military. When you go to look at the fisheries,
they took
Act,
over all the lakes.
all that, if you have to look at it critically, there's no clear designation of where the powers of the military stop and where the civilian man has to start operation from.
Sure.
Go to the Uganda police. You're going to be very surprised of how many key decision makers in the Uganda police actually are from the military, right? But let me take us a little bit back to what our president says. On many grounds, he waters down the civilian man and he says, you're not as patriotic, you know, you're not as passionate, you're not as disciplined. To quote from the book Militarizing to Develop More, somewhere it says that civil service is embedded with corruption of actors such as public servants and political leaders failing to supervise and discipline the civil servants, right? He as well goes on and says, on account of defeating the ideological disorientation, it is important to be able to create a strong state, starting with a revolutionary army. Now, as much as we can go back to, you know, the 1980s, our president has glorified much more the work that they did. That even if the fight for freedom was for Ugandans, at the end of the day, we came out with an army. And this army is like the blueprint of how each and every Ugandan should behave. So get back to, you know, projects that have been infiltrated. If you're to look at NADS, they'll tell you it's because the civilians fail to handle NADS. That's why we are incorporating the army. The army is more disciplined and it has to show Ugandans what to do. Now, same thing, they're telling
It has been a yardstick for everything. I think they are just not yet in schools as lecturers yet. But they are in universities already in charge of security.
See how you people talked about the CDF and then abducting people to teach them
They already is teaching language.
The thing is this, these things are not new. They've just been operating on very small levels. We try in the fisheries, we try in agriculture. Now it's not enough. Let's go into the political sphere, right? We talk about freedom of expression. We talk about freedom of association. You know, I saw the Public Amendment Act and all that. And you get to understand that at the end of the day, there's a man controlling it. And this man is a man in uniform. You get. He even states very well, actually, for them to infiltrate the military into the police. It's like the police wasn't doing enough. You know, at a certain point, it has to be brutal. When you look at the Fisheries Act, Section 21, it talks about use of minimal force. But they never demarcate clearly when this force is meant to be used.
The measure is...
So we are coming back here. And we had a discussion before we got in. It was about, you know, the dress code. Look at the beret, right? Now, when I read, I don't know if I read it wrong. It was, is it sky blue? That's the color they put on the beret. Now, I don't know whether the specifications are limited to that. When we look at the baseball
previously, their color was only green. I don't know where they have become a rainbow from.
Have you heard about the red top?
Thank you very much. That was their first argument when it came to the nuke berets. So I just want to tell the young people out there that we are under attack. And it's now in broad daylight. At first, it was just, you know, watering down the civilian man. But these people are more, just like she said, power is sweet. They are more inclined to militarize this state in all aspects, right? So even the common man, those boots are no longer yours. They're something that belongs to the army. If you think it's only coming for the politician,
the boutique will have to refund some of my money.
Thank you very much. So that is it. We are not safe, and if we buy into the fear, then we are gone. I don't know how much we can save, but maybe we can collect the little particles and start somewhere. Yeah.
My great counsel of the day, we want to point out that Parliament is established in this country to represent the interest and promote the voices of the people it represents, especially in legislation, is why the people who are in parliament are supposed to be representatives. Today we are locked in such a situation that representatives are not only, I think, clones, but that people can be bought off to pass anything, even when it is not representative of the general population. Looking at the specific amendment and bill, as a young Ugandan heading into the future, I know both of us, the law will catch up with us, and given laws are older than anyone, we leave them here as we go to. The challenge with laws is that they can exist for until Jesus comes back. So why we still have our 10 commandments to recite every morning. So from that direction, where I think you need to shed for a young person at the university, or a young person who follows the inter-university debate. What should the expectations be, because we are moving out of time?
Okay. Thank you for that. When this topic was given out to me, I had to look for the UPDF Act, and when we downloaded it, it realized it's 150 pages. And we had like 2 hours or less to read them and internalize them. 150 pages. But for the sake of a dying country, where I had to sit down and read. At the end of the day, I realized it was a waste of ink and paper.
Very repetitive.
The entire thing was a useless thing. They shouldn't even have put it in the first place. When you look at whatever they put in the UPDF Amendment Act, we have clauses that are actually beautiful. We actually need to appreciate there is the welfare that they have incorporated in the
disciplinary committees.
The disciplinary committees and the entire welfare of the UPDF, and that's what it's supposed to be. I want to first give us a small hint that when we're at our universities or even secondary level, we have what we call a disciplinary committee of prefects, and actually in my high school I was among the disciplinary officers. When we, for example, get a student who has committed, let me say, an offense of murder, do we take that child to the prefects?
No.
You understand? We can't take that child to the prefects. We have to go and surrender this person to the authorities outside, the police. Meaning the entire prefecture we're supposed to hold this person who has, for example, refused to put on a necktie, who has actually refused to attend class. Then we attend to you. Now, what is happening today is that they're making the military as another branch of a court.
Sure.
We are saying no. Before you create it as a court, first deal with your disciplinary issues. If there is any matter that needs to be taken care of, take it to the normal civilian court. Now, when they brought this thing to Parliament to give it reading, the law stressed that, please, there is an issue that I want us to raise. Consultation was not made. Even our own party, which was actually notified about the same, was not given ample time. It's only a stupid person who writes to me and says that, Elian, please come and give us your views on the bill at 11 a.m. and you want me to appear at 12 noon. That is only a stupid person who would do it, because I have to sit down and actually first read what you're saying I'm supposed to respond to. Then also prepare my submission and bring it. The minority report was prepared a night before the reading of the bill because there was no ample time. And that's what they were stressing in Parliament, that please, this needs to be given ample time. Why the rush? And now nothing happened. They just passed the what? They just passed the bill. And at the end of the day, we are saying that what is there for that person who is out there? We are saying this is now ruled by law, because now they're going to lead people not by the law, but by the law they've created, but by the law they want to impose on two people, so that at the end of the day they are able to lead them. There is an important aspect that is in that bill. When you look at section 225 that they put in that bill, they say that in case, I want us to be clear, that in case you want to appeal against a decision of the court martial, you do it in the court of appeal, but whatever decision will be given in the court of appeal or in other court will never alter the sentence of the court of appeal, of the court martial. Now, I'm honestly looking at it from that perspective.
Ugandans don't love reading. Very few people have read that, including me.
225. It is saying, in case we ever give you a judgment, a sentence, and you want to appeal against it, it's okay.
I think it justifies why those who are cleared by the Supreme Court ruling
have never actually come out. That go to the Court of Appeal and raise your issues. But in whatever decision the Court of Appeal will ever give you, unless it's a death sentence, the rest can never change the sentence of of a court martial. Now, I do not know what that is. Actually, that is clear injustice. That is, the bill is being loud on injustice. That we're not here to promote the justice of the people, but we are here to actually keep you incarcerated. We are here to keep you in a court martial, to keep you imprisoned for the rest of your time. And that is why we are saying it has a problem. And people out there, the apologists of NRM and the other people will say that we're actually being against them. But that is the clear indication that there is something sick in this country. If it's not the entire parliament, then maybe some other people. But even the Attorney General who made the law must actually be checked, because you can't bring this law after the entire Constitutional Court and also Supreme Court making a decision that this law is wrong, and now for you make it worse.
Wow, thank you very much. I come to you, the Honorable Nkoyoyo, President of the Launchpad Debate Society at Uganda Christian University. My last question is to you is, does this improve the efficiency on the court system in regards to UPDF matters by it being supplemented another court, or does this completely differentiate the normal operating of the civilian court?
At first, they told us we shouldn't look out.
They have always told us.
But at first, they said we shouldn't look out the army into parliament, because we are questioning for what essence is the army doing in parliament. They said they need to be there to represent their views. If we exclude them, maybe something can happen or somewhere. It's a society of its own. From that point, we saw them introducing Uzima. Every function you go to, it is Uzima. Uzima is made by
National Enterprise Corporation.
Nambole was under
UPDF now. Games.
Colgate is under.
The road.
Toothpaste is under.
UPDF.
The games are under.
UPDF.
The construction of roads is under.
UPDF. They even make laws.
The traffic in Uganda is under UPDF.
Now they want the courts to be under the UPDF.
Now they want courts to be under the UPDF.
That was my question.
Slowly, Uganda is descending into a military state, and all of us are looking. NRM MPs are clapping. Caucus has passed, we clap. The judgment that my brother has been referring to, Chief Justice was clear. Look,
actually, they have just done the opposite of what they were advised not to do.
For what purpose is it for you to send civilians into the military courts? Where have the civilian courts failed in the criminal justice system in this country? Where have they failed? Where have you seen the deficiency? The army, we don't want to send it back to what the General Museveni has already said. Don't send the army away from the people.
He came up with a Vazukuru letter.
Yes. We are telling the president, the reason to why now you're threatened with the red beret, with the Kaunda suit, is because you've discarded off the national army into everything. You've littered it into every affair of the society. And the public is getting used so much to the national army that is supposed to come out just on special occasions. The moment you saw military police, you know it had gotten to its tip and the police couldn't handle.
Sure.
What is the military police doing on the traffic alongside by the roadsides? Military police is stopping people, vehicles to check. For what purpose? They're supposed to be at our borders, safeguarding us against the
When
ADF.
you're leaving Mukono, you find them at Weyogere.
I met them at Weyogere and they are there stationed. What are they doing? Maintain them, let them be professional as they are, but you have demarcations. Lastly, our justice system, as Professor Kabumba has always noted, we must get worried so much in the crisis in which our judiciary is in. And we are here because of you.
He's being captured.
We are here because we are in the judiciary is in a crisis because of the very people that are supposed to rescue it. So we are calling upon all stakeholders, Ugandans. The parliament under Article 79 has a role to safeguard, to protect the constitution. Likewise, you Ugandans under Article 3 of the constitution have a right and a duty to safeguard this institution. Where we are descending into as a country is a rabbit hole. We may not be able to come out and we may not defend. We might have a reason to rewrite the preamble of our constitution after this government has left.
You have contributed your part in history. Coming to you as we conclude, my sister, where does this leave the superiority of the UPDF in this country's administration?
Well, I'm a fan of cartoons.
Oh,
And there is this particular one. There's this particular scene. Is that okay? Let me just state the facts that some time back in the I think in the 18 somethings, sugar was scarce. But then with time, it kept on being produced and everything. So everyone here has sugar in their homes. Sugar was scarce then, and it was only for the royalties. They would even make sculptures of it. So this one character in this cartoon was saying, now now sugar is in every home, so it's no longer important. We can now dispose it of. Now this is what is going to happen: is that history repeats itself, and facts will remain facts.
our
We are
Ugandan
nature.
history has repeated itself so fast, not even 100 years.
Yes,
The ghost of expert is
but
haunting
but
us.
now
Knows.
what is
Oliver
going to
Twist.
happen is things are going to continue the way someone wants them to continue.
True.
But we are going to reach a point in time, and this would be my favorite time. We are going to reach one point in
In
time.
cartoon or in reality?
In reality, it's going to be my favorite time. Is that no one will be respecting the UPDF because they're everywhere.
They have become the state.
See, by the time we would see that that color, how is it called? There is a way it's called in Uganda. That
Bibombola.
bibombola. Whenever you would see that color, you would know, as he has said, you would know specifically. But now, the moment we start getting used, you see, even if it's you and you're getting used that every day you come back and your wife has prepared food, you start taking her for granted. We are going to start taking these things for granted because we have seen them. They have done this and that. They hold guns. We all know that. Now, the time where people will become so tired and fed up, and now this is where the country is going to come into chaos. And even if you're UPDF, even if you're special forces, even if you're what, this is not going to help. So my conclusion is here. The only way we can mitigate all this as Ugandans, because most of us do not read the law, we don't even understand it, we just follow whatever we are told.
I've been with it for some time since last Tuesday, but he's the only one to have read most of the things.
Thank you, we're in the same boat. But what we can do as us, as
Young people
and anyone out there, is that these people in the army are also people. They have families, they have emotions, they have everything. So the only way we can reduce on the factors that we'll be experiencing is let's be humane to these people. Because as much as he's going to be given an order to execute something, if you have been humane to him, that will be, at least, it would not be as hard.
As you conclude today's inter-university debate, I want you to look to the camera and give General Museveni and his gang some advice on how they can manage the situation better.
So, His Excellency, I don't like disrespect.
No, it's General Museveni.
General Museveni. I have been corrected.
They're discussing the military.
When I'm in this discussion, I refer to him as General Museveni.
I just want to be sure that dictatorships fall and nations will always stand. That's one thing I'm sure of. I didn't know something, so I was looking through the constitution and I got to know that we have actually a right not to be tortured, right? We have a right to actually be excluded from degrading treatment. And it is interesting that our CDF is going to stand tomorrow and be like, I have someone in my basement and he's learning Runyankore, right? And a human being is being dehumanized because we know people in the military somewhat are dehumanized, right? For them to be able to serve a given purpose. You're dehumanizing the civilian. You're dehumanizing the local person. There are always consequences to something. As much as power is something that interests you and you want to keep over time, you have to know when to let go. I said it on this very platform. One of the best gifts that the president of this nation is going to give us is early retirement. Let us handle our own affairs. Because you were just making statements by stating that we, the civilians, are indisciplined, actually making us inferior. You know, there has always been that superiority complex of the army. And we were quiet. At this point in
Whenever
time,
he's dressed in his military attire, he will always look at you as the weakness.
you understand? At this point in time, you're making us feel we are useless. Actually, we are not patriotic enough. The army is patriotic. Everything of ours is becoming of the army. Every project, you know, they're in the roads, they're in the fisheries, and all that. I was interested to know that one time when the parliament said that the army should withdraw, they came out and said, oh, by the way, let the big man himself tell us to withdraw
from South Sudan.
So that means you're putting us in a state of jeopardy. Tomorrow you're going to be gone. You won't be here to stay. So let us handle our own affairs.
Let's handle our own affairs, as the statement goes. We want to appreciate you, all our viewers, for following us on the inter-university debate. You could leave your feedback on the commentary section at Civic Space on YouTube, Civic Space on X. Like, share, repost. We do appreciate our technical team. We do appreciate Civic Space TV. Our special appreciation to Center for Constitutional Governance. But all in all, I want to appreciate my panel here for giving us the best of what we expected out of the discussion. Thank you.